So hello everybody, this is Bhante, Joe here, and I'm just here actually on a bit of a mountain, and it's a beautiful view, and so thought to record a short awada for the internet. So I thought that maybe could start with a little meditation, so can lean forward and arch the spine, and look about 3 feet in front, and close our eyes. And can focus in on the breath. Can know when it's coming in and know when it's going out. If we breathe in a long breath, can just know I'm breathing in a long breath. And if we breathe in a short breath, can just know I'm breathing in a short breath. And can focus in on the breath at the tip of the nose. And if notice any patterns of tension or tightness around the nose or the face, can just let those relax. And can practice breathing in and out from this area at the tip of the nose. And when breathing in and out from the tip of the nose, can try to make mindfulness as continuous as possible, being aware all the way through the in-breath. As the in-breath turns to the out-breath, all the way through the out-breath, and as the out-breath turns back to the in-breath again. Trying to keep mindfulness as continuous as possible. And before we finish meditating, can spread thoughts of goodwill, wishing may all beings all around everywhere be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And we can make the mind infinite, can make it unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond. In every dimension, may all beings all around everywhere be happy and at ease. And can open our eyes and do a short reflection on the Dhamma. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. So hope that everybody is having a great day, wherever it might be. And so just came up here. This is actually one of the mountains. For my first time coming to this mountain, it's kind of behind the monastery, and there's a couple little hills which I've been on before, but this one is behind those, and it has towards the base. It used to have this very big, tall grass, and so I never wanted to go in that grass. Because it's almost as tall as your head, and you get warned about going into grass like that. So some people told me to take this kind of some monks who'd been here before told me to take the stream, which is over here, and walk up the stream, and then to come up here this way. And there was a senior monk who was here not too long ago, and he was describing how he used to walk from a kuti on the other side of this mountain down to the monastery. And in my head, I'd always envisioned him taking this road that we'd been up over this way, and kind of, or not always, but it had been in my head, and then kind of walking around that way to the kuti. But here, I remember one thing he said was that in those days, people used to burn the grass, and recently people have burnt this grass, which is why it's maybe pretty low, and there's some scorch marks. And so now I'm wondering if this might be the way that he used to take. It's kind of, it gets very clear here. And then there's actually a road that can go from here down to the monastery. They even have a kind of water pot down there where there's a path that leads to the village, and you can kind of veer off the path. But in any event, it was a kind of interesting thing, because the description of this road, this kuti that's on the other side of the mountain, is a place I've been kind of hoping to see. Heard about this path and thought it sounded pretty neat, and wanted to try to find it. And so, for the last several times, I've been going up this mountain over to the right, and there's been some photos of that on Facebook. It's a beautiful mountain, and but never really considered coming up this one so much. But today was just kind of, walking along, and thought, well, I'll just go down this river road, and then had planned to continue walking up the river and kind of climb up this way, but thought to veer off a bit, and then found this kind of lovely area, which actually looks like it's a nice and easy path to the top of the hill. And so there is a kind of bit of a metaphor in this kind of thing that one might encounter in one's spiritual practice, is that sometimes one can hear the words of another person who's seen something or been somewhere, and then one develops an idea in one's head about what it means, what that experience will be like, what that person has felt, has seen, has understood, and develops a kind of I don't know, you say kind of like goal in one's head based on this experience that one has heard from another person. And of course, this goal that all Buddhists would have in their head is this goal towards Nibbana. The interesting thing is that when one starts to walk along the Buddhist path oneself, try to find the way to kind of wholesome qualities oneself, then what one sometimes finds is that the idea that one had in one's head about what other people described, what they described is correct, but what one was thinking about it might be very different, or might be different. So in the same way, I was thinking this road must be over by this, or was likely over on this other hill, and took this other road. That may actually turn out to be the road, I don't know. But it's also possible that this is the road, a kind of something that was completely, a little bit unexpected, and kind of, just thought I would thought that I would continue, I had this plan in my head, I'll continue up this kind of water path and then, climb up the hill over there, but had heard that was very difficult. Well, actually, I didn't think I would climb up the hill. I thought I would turn back because I'm not with any other monk. And so I don't want to do too much, intense climbing alone. But just thought to take this little side path and then found this kind of, this lovely area with this nice gradual slope up to the top of this mountain. And so there is a kind of principle in this, which is that sometimes one can have this vision in one's head of what one has to do to practice, to achieve milestones in one's practice, to try to get places in one's practice. One wants to get rid of one's addictions. One wants to grow in wholesome qualities. One wants to experience the things that the Buddha talked about in the suttas. But the interesting thing about this is that sometimes one will hear about these experiences that other people have and develop a roadmap based on what one thinks they have done, based on what one imagines they've experienced. But sometimes, interestingly enough, when one starts to go along, head along the road oneself, sometimes one will notice slight detours. Detour isn't the right way, but a slight potential that one hadn't considered before, a slight potential that one didn't know before, and sometimes following these potentials can lead one to unexpected places. And one can sometimes even experience things, say, oh, this is what they were talking about. In my imagination, it was this way, but the reality of it was this way. And so, of course, one always needs to have this kind of, one needs to have this kind of idea in one's head of a goal in the future. Of course, it's something that one needs. One hears about kind of, the Buddha describing Nibbana, describing the end of suffering, describing the jhanas, describing deeper levels of happiness. And this is, of course, something one wants to experience for oneself. But sometimes the reality of the path that leads there might not be the same for oneself as what one imagined it was. The description that another person is giving might actually be pointing to a different mountain. And so what this means is that always on one's spiritual path, or maybe not always is the right word, but one wants to keep an open mind towards possibilities that one hadn't anticipated, and towards potentials that one hadn't anticipated. One wants to keep an open mind in one's spiritual practice to the possibility that a small path off the detour might lead to a lovely area with a nice slope and a new way up the mountain. And this might have been what people were describing, might have been what people were talking about. The nice thing about these things is that when one gets to a particular place in one's practice, then one knows that for oneself. Can have kind of these doubts along the way, is this it, whatever it might be. But then the nice thing about the Buddhist practice is it's to be experienced individually by the wise. So if one reaches phases in one's practice that are, that one might have read about in the text, okay, the Buddha said, this thing in the text. If one experiences that, then eventually one can come to know this is what the Buddha was talking about, and kind of have this kind of knowledge for oneself, kind of independent knowledge. But sometimes this knowledge can surprise one, and kind of one is practicing along, trying for a particular aim, and one actually sees a bit of what the Buddha talked about. It was as he described it. It was what he said, but it might not have been the exact same as what one imagined. It might not have been this mountain. It might have been this mountain. All the time one had one's gaze focused over here, but actually what one was looking for was over here, down a small side road. And this is where the path leads to the top of the mountain. So in one's spiritual practice, one can learn to develop this attitude of open-mindedness. Kind of Ajahn Lee had this phrase, if one thinks one has had an insight or understood something, then one can ask oneself, what if it's the opposite? What if it's the opposite way of what I thought? And what this leaves one open to is the possibility of finding side roads, finding roads one hadn't anticipated that lead to the goal one was searching for, but sometimes lead there by roads that one didn't know existed and hadn't imagined walking down. And yet that's the road that one needs to take if one wants to find the goal that one set out for. So for this reason, one can always keep this attitude of heedfulness, this attitude of open-mindedness. Try to see what one hadn't seen before, to try to experience what one hasn't experienced before, and to try to see for oneself what the teachers, what the Buddha is talking about. To know that individually for the wise, to know that individually for oneself. Okay, so I think that leave that for reflection, and hope that everybody has a great day wherever it might be, and wishing you all the best till next time.